my first US camp. My name is Chris Baines. I'm from England. So if you need me to translate to American, I'll do my best. I've been doing the European camps since the first camp. I think I'm the first white belt to start at camps, then get the black belt, and then teach at camps. So I've been doing this since this was a thing. So yeah, be nice. I talk a lot, so please get comfortable. You may hate standing up. So I have the hardest time naming my classes because I go through so many ideas. I don't really do techniques. Any techniques I do are more to demonstrate my ideas, not necessarily things you have to go do. So if I do give an example, you can either do that example or you can take your own and apply the same ideas. Entirely up to you. So I like to start anything I do with like an objective, like a contract between myself and you guys. And so the objective of this class is to give you ideas on tools that like understand your opponent's game and now to mess with them really. So it's not just you swinging in the dark, it actually gives you some ideas like, right, I can read this person's intentions. Part of the big way I do that in my gym these days, if anyone did Christian's class early on, Defending Everything, he talked about how do you train when side control doesn't exist anymore? How do you train when mount doesn't exist? And that's the problem we hit about 4 years ago when we started adopting this defensive jiu-jitsu. In that for about 6 months, we couldn't get anything. It was the most boring time in the gym. Like, there was no chokes, there was no side control, there were no arm bars, there were no leg locks, and everyone got super deflated on jiu-jitsu for 6 months. Now it's changed. So we had to adapt how we drill everything. So we found the easiest way of doing it is backwards. We don't drill forwards anymore, so we don't do position, setup, submission, etc. We do submission, setup, position. It's a weird way of drilling. I find it works a lot better than conventional drilling. And so I'll give you some of those tools and why I've hit that conclusion. Hopefully it'll make sense to you. I've got a second class on Thursday morning, which is going to cover more the late/early, depending on how you look at it, more the end product stuff. So that would be joint locks and joint lock escapes. So I'm going to kind of ignore that part now. So I'm going to take a step back to the setup part. So every setup you've ever done from any seminar and everything like that is a combination of hand fighting that once occurred for that coach, that person. So say if you do like a triangle setup, that was a specific roll or spar or something, and they pushed a hand through and they got a triangle. I'm like, oh damn, that's a setup I can teach. Except that's like shining like a laser pen through smoke. Like, there are a million different combinations you can do stuff, and all they've done is like give you one example when there are millions of ways of doing it. And if you look at jiu-jitsu that way, just lining up different laser pens through smoke, jiu-jitsu can seem infinite. So I find doing this way makes more sense. So again, put a pin in this idea, it will make more sense on Thursday. So I do end product, understand your enemy, understand what you're trying to destroy, control position that allows you to get it. And then once you understand your control position, you have context. And I'll come on to that in about 5 minutes time. In between that, context and minor control position, pre-submission, is hand fighting, and that's it. And every setup you've ever had is a different combination of hand fighting. And so once you know what your end product is, such as a armbar or this, that, and the other, you kind of know where you need to end up, so you can adapt your hand fighting accordingly. So one drill that I want to start off with, just to kind of prove my point, is I want you to try and pass someone's guard with an illegal, wrestling-based illegal grip, which is this one. I want you to join fingers, like one person sit on the floor in guard, one person sit or stand up next to them, kneeling next to them. I want you to join fingers with the other person, and without breaking grip, I want you to pass that person's guard. Seems like a mad drill. never done it before. This is really new for me, so this could go horribly wrong. I make everything up on the spot. So I want to join hands with that person, interlock fingers. Don't break each other's fingers. That would be a bad seminar, especially because you guys don't have free healthcare. So join fingers and then try and pass that person's guard. I want to see what happens. It'll take 2 minutes. So off you go. Let's see what happens. Did it work? Did anyone pass guard?
Nope.
Like what? Okay. Was that brown belt versus blue belt? And you're like, yeah, it worked. I don't think you count.
Wow, Ray.
So I may be wrong. We don't have wrestling in the UK, but I believe that grip is illegal in wrestling because it kills wrestling. Like as soon as I can interlock fingers with the other person, there is no grappling anymore. Grappling is done. We have to break that kind of grip and then we can carry on, which then means that there's a pinnacle of hand fighting. So effective, it kills grappling. And so if we're not aspiring to that level of hand fighting, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Like, we can literally stop grappling dead. As in, like, guard retention becomes a moot point if they don't have hands. Like, why do you have to learn anything else? Like, if I can interlock hands with the other person, or do something as good as interlocking hands with that person, jiu-jitsu's over. And so, if that's how good hand fighting can be, our drills have to like reflect that. And so, drilling backwards means that. So I give end product, I give mind control, I give context. So the position we're going to start from, and then it's just hand fighting to that mind control. And so that builds people's hand fighting sensitivity to get to that point where you can shut down jiu-jitsu. I mean, I've been doing these camps long enough, I've been rolling with enough people long enough that I'd say it's one of the defining characteristics between a lower belt to a higher belt is the amount of hand fighting and the effective hand fighting that person does. Like, you tell me in general, positions or submissions or sweeps or whatever, that a black belt does that a white belt doesn't. There aren't any. You learn everything at white belt. Like, you learn all the positions or submissions or sweeps, yada, yada, yada. So why are black belts better? Repetition, yeah, but it's hand fighting. It's that sensitivity. Like, I've been choked by enough white belts who choke me as good as any black belt. But that white belt, black belt gets there a lot more effective than the white belt. It's because they have superior hand fighting. There are other aspects, but I'd say that's one of the defining characteristics of improving in jiu-jitsu is your ability to hand fight. And going back to what Christian said earlier about doing the defensive jiu-jitsu and people pummeling in, it's hand fighting again. Hand fighting is everywhere. And this then gets to the one of the cruxes of my class on reading your partner's game, is when does the hand fight start? When should you start hand fighting? Do you start hand fighting when they are literally in your face, or is it a lot earlier than that? And my opinion is there's the pocket. So, so we have spoken to them. So I wanted to Wim de Putte is a brilliant European coach, talks about the pocket, and there's a distance where there is fight, no fight, and it's all over. So if he stays there, we're not fighting. We can't touch each other, nothing's going to happen, there's no fight, you get to go home, you both won. This distance here is the pocket. Like, the distance where I can touch him is the distance I need to start hand fighting. So if I don't start hand fighting in that distance, I've already lost. And now, as soon as you can't get to that distance, it's the clinch. And that's where technique now starts to happen. And so, going back to what I said with that previous drill, if hand fighting can be that superior, that it can kill grappling, why aren't we doing it? But also, if that's where the pocket starts, why aren't we fighting at that distance? So, when I'm looking at playing guard here, I don't really let my feet go further than my hands can back them up. And so, the second he kind of gets in this distance here, if I'm not hand fighting him, what's he going to do? He's going to grab my legs and start passing my guard. And I've already lost. Why didn't I get engaged? As soon as he kind of gets within that striking distance, go again, pass my guard. Bastard. I should be hand fighting by now. So that's the first part of like reading your opponent's intentions. Is that there is a distance when the fight starts, and if you aren't present in that moment and already start hand fighting, you've already lost. You already now have to rely on superior jiu-jitsu technique when it's one of my favorite drills to do with my white belts. I say, right, I want you to hold my hands, and I'm going to try and pass their guard. And there's a black belt versus a white belt, I cannot pass their guard. Why are we doing this? And so all I want you to do is go back to, I don't really like doing techniques. When I do drilling, it's not one-for-one drilling as per normal. It is sparring with a designated winner. And so, similar to how Christian explained earlier, person on bottom, I want you to win. Person on top, I want you to be like a pad man in boxing. So you're not a bag just standing there. Otherwise, why don't we just go back to the pandemic and have grappling dummies? So I want you to engage with that person if they are failing. If you're just smashing their guard out of the way, lower the intensity. If you're having difficulty, up the intensity. So you match your partner. But if you're on the bottom as well, give feedback. Say, you're being a dick. Slow it down. Or you're being a dick. You're not giving me anything to work with. Does that make sense? And so, person on the bottom, you're going to be playing like an open guard. Person on top, you're going to try and pass their guard. Person on the bottom, I just want you to hand fight them. Okay? Just control their hands, no matter how that kind of plays out. And then see if that kind of slows their guard passing and get that feedback off your partner. It's like, actually, that made life really difficult, or vice versa, if it made life easier. I don't know, let's find out. I want feedback. That's the other thing. I don't like this idea that black belts sit here, students sit here. Like, this is all like group learning. So if you do something, white belt, blue belt, don't care. And I'm like, cool, that's cool. Like, tell me. It's how I learn stuff. So this is like a group exercise, not just me telling you to do shit. I'm just directing the flow of things. So person on the back, play like an open guard. Person on top, try and pass again. Don't just smash them, give them something to work with. Person on bottom, just control their hands and see if that affects their guard. Passing ability. Make sense? Give me feedback afterwards, I'm interested. You good? Exactly. Like, so this is what I mean. So, and this makes teaching jiu-jitsu difficult. Is I've done wrestling, I've done judo, stuff like that, and hand fighting is a massive part of it. Jiu-jitsu is not. We learn jiu-jitsu as a traditional martial art, but we want to be a combat sport. And so, if I was like go to a normal class and say, right, all we're going to do tonight is hand fighting, like everyone would leave because like, no, coach, I need a new technique. Do you? Like, what really new techniques are there in wrestling? Like, apart from double legs and single legs, like, and shots. Like, if you can do those things, it's all hand fighting after that. Same with a lot of judo and etc. etc. But in jiu-jitsu, we want more techniques. We want new passes. We want new sweeps. We want new submissions. Yet hand fighting dictates everything. And like you saw there, like, it forms a huge aspect of the game. It is everything. And so we need to try and build our drills around that we can improve our hand fighting to actually improve our jiu-jitsu. And as soon as they kind of enter that space, we need to start hand fighting. Because otherwise they build their grips. We let them have their grips. Like, how many times have you looked up or had classes on grip breaking? Why? That's way too late. Like, how the hell did they get close enough to get a grip on you? Like Christian said it earlier, like, you know, if someone pummels in on that defensive space and makes a grip, like you fucked up. Like, you should have been hand fighting them way earlier. And this is kind of like what I'm reiterating now, is that it's not just when you're in this space here and someone's around you and pummeling in, like, it's way earlier. There's that distance where as soon as we're touching hands, we need to be hand fighting. Like, hear the idea of like a reach advantage. Why is that important? Because my pocket starts earlier than yours. Like, I can get that distance way earlier than you can. And so you have to interpret that in your body type and understand your pocket compared to other people's. Does that make sense? Please stop me if my English isn't that good. So the next part. Adding a bit onto what Christian said earlier about defensive postures and maybe what Danaher kind of said about jiu-jitsu. I look at things as like a red, amber, green system. And so if someone's in the gap between my armpit, my elbow and my armpit, that's red. Like, I've fucked up. Like they are up in that space, life is going to get super hard for me. If they are in the space between my elbow and my knee, that's amber. I am halfway to fucked up. If they're south of my knees, it's good. We're good. I'm happy. And so that's why I don't like this, and that's why that didn't feature as part of Christian's class earlier, is this like framing position from the bottom of side control. Okay, they're not in my armpits, but the gap between my elbow and my body will always be bigger than a human wrist. And so it won't take much for them to get their hand in here and open my armpit back up again. Okay? So just by framing, I've just delayed the inevitable. I want them south of my knees, which coincidentally is guard. Guard can be defined as someone being south of your knees. Because every guard, Christian used to do a brilliant class in this called G-spot passing. Maybe it's something you can only do in Europe. A lot more open. Figurative and emotionally. So every guard pass, pretty much by definition, is you putting something ahead of their knees, then adding the rest of yourself until you're past their knees. You tell me a guard pass that doesn't involve touching ahead of their knees. Any. There isn't any. Over-unders, double-unders, knee cuts, everything. Requires at some point for you to make a grip ahead of someone's knees. And so, can everybody get that? Half guard, please. Shit, he's already let me do it. Twice. Top hand, I'm already smothering his knee on this spot. But also my bottom knee is also covering his bottom leg. I've passed his guard already. I am 70% through his guard. Like he's just holding on to one leg. Like I hear a lot like knee shield doesn't work. No, knee shield does work. Knee shield works perfectly. But it's not about the top leg. It's not about your knee shield that's failing you. It's your bottom leg. So, like if he's knee shielding me here, and I get past his bottom leg, I can turn past that and start passing. But if he doesn't let me get ahead of his knees and brings his knee closer towards his face, I'm going to try and do that again. Oh shit, it doesn't work. So it was never that knee shield fail. It was the idea that you actually let them pass your guard way earlier than you expected. And you ever seen the game Operation? Like you try and pull the things out of the board, like as a kid, like buzzes the sides. You need to have that kind of sensitivity of everything ahead of your kneecaps. Because that is when the guard is starting to get passed. If someone's smothering your knees here, passing's already started. Because they're just going to add the rest of them until they are past you. Does that make sense? And so, again, understand this group fight, understand your partner's intentions. If I approach his guard here, I try and pass his guard just by holding his ankles, unless I'm super aggressive and throw his legs out the window, I can't pass his guard. Because what is shrimping, aside from putting someone south of your kneecaps? But if he lets me ahead of his knees, that's when the guard starts to get passed, in any way, here. So if he has that sensitivity, just to hand fight with me, and strip those grips and put them south of his knees again, just put them south. There you go, guard passing there. All comes back to hand fighting. Does that make sense? So now we're going to go back to that similar drill, about the hand fighting drill. But person on top, I want you to try and make connections to ahead of their knees. Person on bottom, have that super sensitivity and get rid of them. If the person on top, if you manage to get a grip and hold it for 3 seconds, I want you to just say, "Did you not see that?" Like, don't just use it, but you go, deal with this. Maybe that can be important. So if I'm playing this guard here, I'm going to drill for you. Here you go. There you go. See what I mean? It's very easy for that shit to start happening. I got a little grip here, and I start to pass his guard. I'm going to start climbing in. And the second you got rid of that grip, it was dead. No guard pass. All in. Does that make sense? So have that sensitivity of awareness ahead of your knees. Like we're taught shrimping from day one. Why? It's that awareness of the space ahead of your knees. Putting someone south of your knees. But it's amazing how much we'll let people have ahead of our knees. Like sometimes you have to. But it has to be a dynamic risk assessment that you allow it to happen. Like for me to go for an platter and stuff like that, I have to put my knees behind their shoulders. But I'm aware of it. I did that on purpose. It wasn't by accident. If I'm just trying to retain my guard, no, not head of my knees. Sorry. Fuck off. Go feel it. It's interesting. Off you go. Like, as much as this is me trying to give ideas out, it's also me collecting data to understand what I'm saying better, to take home and get better myself. So if there's anything that like you did that broke my idea, please tell me. Like, please embarrass me in front of all these people who I don't know.
How would you explain fly overpass?
Can you demonstrate?
Never mind.
But no, even then, like, what is it apart from diving over someone's knees? Like, if I curl up into a ball, you won't pass my guard, even if you fly over me. Which again goes back into what Christian did earlier regarding grilled chicken and the defensive postures, etc. Is we did turtle. So this is turtle. This is guard. This is open guard. This is if my knees are tight towards my armpits, there is no position. You need to get into my armpits. That is your end goal. If you can't get into my armpits, there is no pass. So if I just stay as a ball, who can beat the shit out of me? Can you beat the shit out of me, sir? You're a black belt. Please kick my ass. Okay. This is one of my favourite party tricks I used to do in seminars until I realised that maybe I wasn't going to get booked more. I used to preface this by saying Hicks and Gracie is a fraud, and then get the local black belt to try and kick my ass and say they couldn't do it. Yeah, it was funny. So I've got a belt. Can I borrow your belt? Sure. Thank you. Can you tie me up? See if it happens.
Tie you up?
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Why am I getting tied?
More in-depth description on this.
Is it just that one?
Thank you. Okay. Right. Black belt versus black belt with no arms. Kick my ass. Submit. Has anyone got like a timer? Okay. Yeah. Give him a minute. I want to see if he can kick my ass for a minute.
1 minute?
Yeah.
All right.
Go. Also, are there any points? I don't know if there's any. I know talk like this happens. Are there any points happening? I don't think you passed my guard, because I think you need to get side control for that to happen. There you go. There's still no points. I think he may have an advantage. I'm not sure.
Halfway through.
Really?
Get him.
I like the slow timer. Keep the timer slow.
You were a wrestler! Ninja.
There it is.
1 minute.
What? So that proves my point. I don't think he's got a point on me there. I think he got an advantage, but because he didn't get side control, I don't think that was any points either. Strange. That if we just keep our elbows tight, like our knees tight towards our armpits, that nothing actually bad happens to us. Again, it goes back to my point that don't let anyone ahead of your knees have that like hypersensitivity. You don't have to be mental like that and tie yourself up, but it helps. Does that make sense? Have I lost anyone yet? Good. Next part then is understanding their relationship to you in regards to inside and outside. So if someone is facing me head on, there are two columns of positions. There are inside based and there are outside based. Inside person is afforded something, outside person is afforded the opposite. Not black and white, mostly shades of grey. Can I borrow, sir? Since I borrowed your blue belt, I'll borrow your body. Go to Coast Guard. So, right now, he is the outside-based person and the inside-based person, because I'm in between his legs. Conversely, if he is in between my legs here, he is now the inside person, I'm the outside person. And guards usually fall into one of those two columns. So, Delhiva, for example, an outside base guard because I'm still in between his legs. Make sense? Whilst single leg X is an inside base guard because he is now in between my legs. Does that make sense? So even though he's kind of wrapped around it, he's still in between my legs. Whoever is the outside person can do upper body locks, triangles, and platters, arm bars, etc. Whoever's the inside person can do leg locks. And so just in those few moments at the beginning of the fight, someone usually gives you their intentions. Because it's very hard to move between columns when it comes to guard. As in, if I have closed guard, which is an outside base guard, and he stands up, it's hard for me to go to inside based. Not impossible, but there's a lot more movement involved. It's easier for me to just drop into Delahiva. But to swing for single leg X would take more movement. At the same time, if I was already in an inside based guard column, so butterfly, here, and he stood up, it's easier for me to go for single leg X than it would be for me to go to Delahiva. Not impossible, just impractical. Make sense? So as soon as you've chosen that column at the beginning of the fight, you're kind of stuck in that column. Which means that if you have a certain game plan, like if you're a leg locking scumbag, you're probably... Hi Charles!
How you doing?
You're probably already going to sit in an inside base guard at the beginning. So the second I approach you, I want to break your game. Like Christian mentioned Raul earlier, I rode with Raul last year. Raul was an amazing leg locker from Amsterdam, but I pissed him off something rotten because he just sits like this because he wants to be the inside guy all the time. But I will not engage with you if that is your plan. I will pummel my knees into the middle. Because the second I put you in an outside base column, outside base guards, it's going to be hard for you to go back into leg locks. You can't go back into your game again. Does that make sense? So, body Charles? Sure. Charles is a great leg locker, amazing leg locker, stunning leg locker, scumbag. But I won't start engaging with him right now because anything I do, up or down, is going to remain in this column of me being vulnerable to his game. Like if I open up my leg in any way, this shit's going to happen and I'm going to get destroyed. But if I can force him into another column, if I can go, fuck you, Charles, like, go on the inside, now I can play, because go for one of your leg locks on me now. Exactly. Way too many transitions, it's all fucked up. Okay? So I won't engage with him until I completely destroyed his game. I've read his intentions, which was part of the plan for this class. How to read your opponent's intentions and destroy them. So I just completely broke his game. Same as, if I'm playing with someone who is a more traditional based person who might be playing triangles, if I saw their game like a previous match and like they're doing triangles and arm bars and shit like that, and they're like sitting with their legs open, I'm like, bollocks to you. And I put them in the middle. Now his whole game has been broken. He now can't play triangles, arm bars, or platters and everything like that. I've broken him. Because anything that he wants, like go back to a closed guard, he breaks everything in that transition to go between columns. It's one of the reasons I love half guard. Because half guard is both. It sits alone in the middle. Because in half guard, on this side, it's outer base locks, on platters, arm bars, kimuras, all the cool shit. On this side, it's inside base shit, leg locks. It's how you know someone is a leg locker. First time me and Charles was, fuck you. What do you do, Charles? Pummels, good slow, scumbag. He pulls that outside leg on the inside. He makes his outside leg an inside leg, makes himself the inside base guy, and then fucked with me. Same as if you watch like Ross Nichols and people like that, they'll sit their leg here. And they make themselves an inside base person. They take their outside leg and put it on the inside. So I've just read their intentions very early on. So I know now, or he knows now, shit, Chris is going leg hunting today. But if he takes my legs out, for example, now he's broken my game. So it's very early on that you can kind of ruin their intentions with this stuff. Does that make sense? So that's a very hard thing to drill. But go and explore it. If you have a leg lock game, feel it what happens when your legs get put on the wrong side. feel it. What happens if you've got an outside game, if your legs get put in the middle? Does it break your game? Is it hard to get back to the other side? There was one of Dan Hur's brown belts who lives in the UK, and he used to pull mat. He used to just lie on the floor like this. Because what's mount apart from an inside base position? And so he just lie there like this, because the second anyone puts their leg over to get mount, he just leg locks them. Because he makes himself the inside base person. It's really, really funny to watch. And it's amazing that jiu-jitsu can be read like this early on. And so if you see someone who you think, right, they have plans, you can fuck with them. But go feel it, it's really interesting. Just feel that if your game breaks when you get taken out of your planned positioning, does your guard map? Off you go. Next part is something I'm kind of new with. I'm super curious about. And again, it's messing with your partner's intentions, and I do this on purpose. I mentioned to Preet, and he was like, doesn't make sense, it's wrong. So, I don't know, I haven't got Dad's approval yet. Who here, when they learn technique, do they drill both sides? Do you feel you have to? Should we? No? Yes? Maybe?
Yeah.
Defensively or offensively?
Yeah. So if I said that drop into side control now, you'd probably all drop into the same side control. Like left arm around the head, right arm around the body. Yeah? Yeah. Exactly. So I use both. They're separate positions for me. I don't think there's side control, as we refer to side control. I think there's side control 1 and side control 2. There's orthodox and southpaw. Because who here's right-handed? Vast majority. Okay? Which means you'd find orthodox in boxing. You wouldn't switch to southpaw necessarily, because everything would be wrong. Like you'd be jabbing with your power hand and trying to knock them out of your disposable hand. That's the exact same in jiu-jitsu. So when we do side control and stuff like that, we have a more menial hand, and we have a hand with greater dexterity, should we say. I don't like the idea of it being a recessive side, just different. Like a tattoo artist friend of mine said, as much as you think your right hand is important for like drawing and writing, you try and do it without your left holding the paper. Always goes fucking wrong. If you try and do it with your left hand behind your back, you fuck up. And so, as much as you think like your left hand isn't your good hand, it's just different. And so, can I borrow some? Thank you. So when I hold side control, so back, hey, to orthodox. How strange. So whilst I'm on this side, this is my dominant, this is my recessive hand, shall we say. And so everything I want to do is usually done with this hand. So arm bars, darces, all that cool jazz. Okay? If I try and do the same shit on the other side, so let's go now. It's all wrong. Like if I try and do my darces and arm bars and stuff like that on this side, it's wrong. But this hand now is around his head. So I get way more guillotines and north-souths on this side. Completely different game. Like, I've doubled jiu-jitsu. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, right, okay, I'll settle my shit from this side for other things. Like, I won't go for darces and arm bars and that kind of stuff. I'm going to go for guillotines, north-south chokes, and all that cool jazz. Which means there's 2 side controls. There's 2 half guards. But most of us don't lean into understanding that other side of jiu-jitsu. Like, if I go to half guard, again, orthodox. So if I go to pass this half guard here, here's my dominant hand. It's good for framing and knee cutting and all that kind of cool shit. If I try and do it on the other side, it's all wrong. Like if I try and frame now and try and cut now, it's just shit. It's going to look weird, it's going to be off timing and stuff like that. But here's my dominant hand again. I don't even pass, I don't bother passing on this, I just go for guillotines all the time. Because that's my dominant arm. If I tried to do that on the other side, my left hand, I'd probably get rolled. So one of the things I'm really leaning into now in jiu-jitsu is like doubling the amount of jiu-jitsu I have to learn. It's actually made me really sad because it's like colouring in like a colouring page for the last 13 years and then finding that it's been folded in half and I have like fucking missed half of it. I'm like, oh, bollocks. So it's actually made me really upset and like had a bit of an existential crisis in jiu-jitsu. But there are two sides. And so I can read my opponent's intentions and fuck with them. Because I can put them into a side where it looks familiar, but they're probably going to apply their A game on their wrong side. So I'll sit in people's half guard here. I'll pass this way. Because I've spent time now understanding how my body works in half guard southpaw. But he probably hasn't. He's probably going to try and go for his normal game. He's probably going to try and come up for a dogfight or something like that and try and sweep me. But it's all going to be wrong because he's using the wrong arms. Does that make sense? So, like, if I'm passing, for example, go for dead heaver. Cool. All right, go for it again. That felt weird, didn't it? How off was that? It was interesting. And so I do this on purpose now. I've purposely leant into the wrong side of my game and understood how my body works there. So instead of having a shitty mirror image of my jiu-jitsu, I have a fully fledged southpaw game that leans into how my body works. Does that make sense? So again, I said at the beginning of this, there are much techniques in my class. I don't like it. I feel like I get more information out this way. But it also made me think how many things have I abandoned over the years just because I was using the wrong arm. Like, I abandoned the dogfight escape from side control 10 years ago because I thought it didn't work. Because every time I tried to use it, so if you get side control on me, I was trying to turn up with this arm, and it's weak, it's my recessive arm, and I was getting darts a lot because it's their dominant arm. And so I thought, dogfight doesn't work, I'm shitting. And then started doing it from this side. Because if I try and do stuff on this side, like shrimping and stuff like that, and framing, it's my left hand. It's wank. Like, it ain't going to work that well. But my dogfight is with my dominant hand. It works really well. And they're trying to dast me with their bad arm. They don't get it. And so if I try and, if I did it on the other side, I'd probably get gassed. But now, if I come up this way, try and dast me, you can't. It's all wrong. It's slow. It's out of timing. Stuff like that. And so, again, hardship to drill. I wanted to go now and just go to those off positions, the wrong side, and then purposely look at your jiu-jitsu and think, right, how do I bring my dominant side into this? Does that make sense? So how I hold side control is different on both sides. So, Cabrosa. Again, holding the paper. Ah, nice. I need the other side. So here, I'm holding the paper, and I do all my cool shit here, right? On the other side, I hold my side control like this, holding the paper, and now my arm does something different here. I don't hold head and arm. It's doing guillotines, it's doing north-south chokes, it's doing all the other cool shit. Does that make sense? So, two different side controls. Very interesting. Were you aware of it? Did you do this on purpose? Maybe, maybe not. I'm curious. So go play, go investigate. Do things differently. Could you do things differently? And then we'll come back and have a conversation in 3 minutes' time. Off you go. Interesting? Not interesting? I find it super interesting. It means there's another whole world of jiu-jitsu that I don't feel I've explored yet. And I've explored jiu-jitsu enough to get the black belt, and then we'll discover there's a whole other side to the game that I can now lean and really, really investigate. It's really exciting me an awful lot. Some stuff obviously can do both sides. Some heel hooks I feel comfortable doing both sides, for example. But I only do outside heel hooks well on my dominant side. It's interesting. I do saddle heel hooks better on my recessive. It's personal to me. Does that make sense? Any questions on anything I've talked about? So a recap on my objective, and you can tell me if this contract was broken, was to give you the tools to read your opponent's intentions and destroy them. Started off with talking about hand fighting and the pocket. When does the hand fight start? Much earlier than you can possibly imagine. The second that my hand can touch him, that's where I should be fighting. Not if I'm waiting to that here, I fucked up. Talked about understanding the importance of your knees. So again, if someone is just sitting in your guard and they're smothering your knees, it already shows you that they're intending to either leg lock you or pass your guard. If you're just letting them chill there, you've already let yourself down. You need to understand the importance of your own knees and getting them back south, unless you have a plan for a submission or a sweep or whatever. We looked at the idea of people giving away their intentions with their submission game very early on in the position they sit in. They sit quite close-legged, probably a leg locker. If they don't, they're probably playing traditional jiu-jitsu. But that, again, is really early on. You can read it before the approach. Because a leg locker won't sit like this and then swing on the inside. Doesn't happen. Very rarely. And then we ended up on this final part about orthodox and southpaw. Like, you can take their intentions, flip them the wrong way around, and they'll probably still try and play the same game. They'll try and do the same things they do on their good side. Because again, side control is a perfect example. If I say go side control, you all go the same side. You drill the same side, you shrimp the same side. But if I then put you in the wrong side control, I can hold you for longer. Because you're going to try and do the same escapes, but they're just going to be slightly off. They're either going to be slightly slower, your submission's going to be worse, and I'll lean into that. Because most people, again, don't investigate the fact there are two side controls. There are two half guards. There are two De La Rivas. There's two of everything practically. Does that make sense? It's curious. It made me interested. Made sense? Not made sense? Cool? Not cool? Any questions on anything, please ask me. If it didn't make sense, please tell me. I don't get better otherwise. My next class is on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. I'm taking stuff that Christian talked about earlier about defensive jiu-jitsu. We're applying it to joint locks only and how to mess up joint locks really early. And what actually is a joint lock? Probably isn't what you think. That's a surprise, but yeah. Yeah, question?
Oh,
Yeah, hello.
so when you begin the hand fighting game, let's say you grip their hands, I'm worried about getting overextended. That has happened to me before, and then this space opens and passing
I think.
What prevents that?
Oh, so hand fighting is, this is kind of like the next phase of the defensive jiu-jitsu. I'm aware Heather's there. I don't want to take her time. So I'll very quickly do this. So, go right, sir. So we did, if anyone was in Christian's class earlier, we did Running Man. I do high Running Man, so if you go behind me. So part one of this defensive stuff is passive covering. So I put something in the hole that you can't get in it. Second phase is active hiding. So if I hold his hand, that wasn't your hand. Right, thick. His wrist. So go on your knees. So like, try to me. So if I hold his hand there, what was going to go in the gap can't go in the gap because I've got it. But if I now lose his hand, I just close the door again. And I can hand fight, because that now gives me space to do stuff. Does that make sense? So it's kind of the next phase of the defensive jiu-jitsu. It makes it a lot more active. And that's where the hand fighting comes in. Like, I'll close the door if you become too aggressive. Otherwise, I'll go to hand fighting and I'll control what you are putting in the gaps. If I lose that hand fight, I'll just close the door again. So it's based on knowing, again, the defensive jiu-jitsu, where you are exposed, controlling if you can, if you can't, closing the door. But you can't do that unless you had Christian's class earlier and understood this idea of where vulnerability is. Make sense? Cool. Quick picture, and I want to flip that.